All right, I've got an idea. Since both ends have a tiny little hole, it's so hard to get on camera. Um, it's on that end right there, kind of between the center and the edge there. Both of them have a hole kind of similar to that. You can see it right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of like this blue sticky tack putty, and I'm kind of shove it in that little crevice. I'm going to take some of this baking soda here, and I'm going to put it in the other end. Basically, I'm going to feed it in through this end, and it's all going to go down to this end. But this end's going to be stopped up, so it won't be able to fall out. I'm going to try to fill it up enough. It's going to be hard for me to do because I'm not going to be able to see what I'm doing. But the idea is I fill it up enough, and then I take super glue from this end and drop it all the way down. And the reaction is it gets very, very hard and solid and stabilizes. At the very least, I'm going to have one of these ends stabilized. So I'm going to actually look and see real quick which one I think is the weakest, and I will stabilize that one, and then I'll have to come up with some other solution, because I could put, after I do this end, I could put more baking soda in, but I don't have a way to get the super glue in. So, I guess I could put a hole in this somewhere else, but then I gotta patch the hole. So that should easily fit. Oh yeah, plenty of room. Plenty of room. And that just pops on to the end of that, and I can squirt a bunch in there. And hopefully I hit the bottom where the baking soda is. That's my plan. Let's see if I can execute on it. We're all ready to go. Let me I do think that worked. If I feel the bottom of this, it's real warm. It's like hot. That's the chemical reaction. What they call it? Exothermic reaction, I think is what it's called, if I remember correctly. If you haven't seen it before, baking soda and super glue, they form a very hard substance when you mix the two. Same thing with cotton. You can actually use cotton as well. So this is actually going pretty well. I'm going to pull this off here in a second because it really doesn't take that long. It's just going to have a bit of a heat build up for a little bit. Downside to me doing this is I didn't fully break it, but it's got a bit more weakness on this side. I kind of opened it up a little wider, which which kind of sucks, but oh well. So yeah, let's pick it off and see what happened. Okay. Ooh, it seeped through a little bit. If you can tell, no. Well, interesting. Well, it's not totally firmed up, but it does feel more solid, but I can still wiggle it a little bit. Well, I think it's got to be cleaned up a little bit more. I'm probably going to throw a little bit of primer on it so it's all one color instead of like pink and dark gray and white and blue. It'll just help me see the contours of the shape in that end a little bit better. I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm half tempted to just cut the entire end off at the seam right there and then like backfill it and come up with some way to attach the ends back on, but I kind of just don't want to cut it off at the same time. So, and then I still got to deal with this end. So I threw some primer down. I didn't cover the whole thing because that wasn't the exercise here. I was just trying to spot little imperfections that are hard to see on dark, and then, you know, the multicolorness that is the ends. This is actually the end that we sealed up. I wanted to see the condition of that. It looks pretty rough, looks pretty gross, but with a little bit more putty and a little bit more sanding and scraping, we ought to be good. So a lot of it looks pretty good as far as the side seams. There was a spot, you know, right here. There's a little bit still left of that side seam. So, and I want to clean that up a little bit more too. That's where I repaired a pinhole and it kind of got a little messy. So I'll try to do that a little bit better, and I can sand all this primer down if it looks a little coarse. It's no big deal because it's going to get primered again. Alright guys, I've been doing a little work off camera because I've only had like 20 minutes maybe a night, usually right before I go to bed. So I've been doing what I can on this project. Show you where I'm at now. I've gone through another round of puttying and filling and well, probably like actually 2 rounds of that, and then I just finished another round of primer. It's pretty much all primered. I have a couple fingerprints over here because there's not really a great place for me to hold it while I'm doing this, and so I got a fingerprint, and then there's another little spot where the primer's a little thin, but the ends, both ends are now filled in and secure. Honestly, there wasn't really that much different from the footage you watched before because it was basically like me putting a little putty on, waiting for it to dry, sanding it down, putting a little bit more on, you know, just kind of sanding, you know, because it's the sanding channel. I thought I would actually give you guys a break from sanding because I'm generous. I'm a generous YouTuber, I guess. but the ends are both filled in, and they look better. I'm probably going to do some more sanding on it, because I don't like there's a couple little raised areas on the end that I don't love, and so I just want to sand that out, and then I'll do that before I finish up the primer where it's got a couple thin spots in that fingerprint. So yeah, more sanding, more primer. I don't think I'm going to do any more putty. And to fill up that other hole, just to touch on it, I actually cracked that whole side pretty bad, where you could push it in a little bit, and so I used super glue to kind of secure that. The super glue right here, just super glue straight up, and kind of use that to help build up real thin and secure that crack. But there was still the hole on the end that I was using before, where I was shoving all the baking soda in, and so I wound up, debating with myself for I don't know how long, but it was a while. It's like, how do I want to attack that? How do I want to fill this tiny little hole and not have it be like a huge mess, because it's really hard area to sand, like within that little canyon. So I wound up just using the Tamiya putty. I was able to kind of shrink the hole with when I was repairing that crack with the super glue, and so I shrunk it up a little bit in that process. But I don't like how hard and difficult it is to shape that super glue, so I wound up filling it in with that Tamiya putty, and then just trying to sand it down and flatten smooth. And one thing I got to keep in mind, though, is this thing's going to be painted black. So when we're looking at these ends, it's going to be real hard. Yeah, you can kind of see that raised bit right there at the top on that one. This one's got a tiny little chunk on it. It's really hard to catch it. Anyway, they're tiny little things, but that's kind of thing about Tron, is everything's kind of perfect and smooth. Nothing's really weathered, so you really got to perfect it. So anyway, that's enough. That's enough chit chat. Maybe I'll actually record something I'm doing now. The other side just cracked open. Well, that really sucks. But the good news is it seals up really well when I don't have pressure on it. So I think I can just put a thin bead of CA glue in there and hope that it's enough to fill the space and solidify it. I just gotta be real gentle with it in the future. I'm kind of bummed that this is so friggin' thin on the end. Like, it feels solid where I've repaired it, like on the other end of it, and all the way around where it was cracked on this side. But like this end, I'm terrified to push on it, because it's just paper thin. This other side is now solid, but I'm sure that recess is every bit as thin as the other side, even though this is the side that I filled up with baking soda and dropped a bunch of super glue on. So it could be harder. I just don't know that I got enough to get over that little recess, because like when it's upside down, it's essentially the inside of it's the reverse of this. So I had to fill that entire center cavity up and then try to get over that ridge, and then also probably would want to fill in the whole outer lip. And I still haven't done my little bit of touch-up sanding. There's a blob right there and a blob right in that corner. So okay, well, I'm going to super glue this and hope it goes okay. Wish me luck. Alright, I gotta give that a couple minutes just to fully cure up. It shouldn't take that long, but it's I don't want to use any accelerant on it. Like I've got this Mitra Appel. It's that kick spray. You put it on and it makes it cure. I found sometimes when I do that it'll like foam up, and I do not want that to happen. So we're just going to let it cure and harden naturally. It'll take a couple minutes, and I don't want to touch it until then because I don't want, since it is a very thin CA glue, I don't want it to run anywhere I don't want it to go. So it's going to stay right where it's at for a few minutes and cure. Alright, so that was like the third or probably fourth round of me going through, sanding, scraping, filling. Gonna have to do another primer round because I've scraped, and I gotta do a little bit more sanding before I do that because I just filled that little corner. But getting really, really close to having it fully primed and sharp looking, at least as sharp as I can get it, because it's hard to work in that tiny little canyon. So I think this would be a good time to talk about paint. It is currently the winter time. It's middle of December, and I cannot spray paint right now because it's usually too cold. There is a day coming up, I think in 4 days, it's going to be above 50 degrees, which is what the threshold is for spray painting. But it's going to rain all day, so that's a problem. So I don't have a satin clear coat at this time. I might have to order one, see if I can order it and get it in, because then I could just use a flat black paint and then do a satin clear coat over the top. I could do a flat black and then just kind of polish it, which is interesting in itself. And then it's also just not one color. It's not just black. It's got the center band here, and I believe the end. So this center section is actually like a charcoal metallic kind of color. It's very dark, kind of like a dark gray. So each end is going to be like that, and then the center, and then these pieces in between, these sections in between, they're going to be flat black. And then the center area has actually got a weird like hexagon pattern thing on some of them, but like some of the stunt ones, they don't have anything there. They're put in, I think, I don't know, I gotta check the reference on that. I'm not sure they all, or any of them had that. They all might have been added in post-production. And then, of course, the inside of the ends where I've been working, those are like lit up white, or white or orange or red, depending on the character. But obviously I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do kind of like the deactivated, actual prop version of it. I might add that little hexagon pattern thing in here. I think I downloaded like a PDF that somebody made of that, and so I'll see if I can print that onto some sort of material or something like that, or maybe I can get a decal and do that. Maybe I can stick that on something. I have reflective tape. Actually, that would be pretty cool if I put it on. If I was able to get a decal and mount that onto a reflective tape, then it would at least like kind of shine. Or I could just see if I can get it like a Cricut or laser cut sort of thing and make a stencil, and then just paint like a little plastic thing white and then do the trim in black or something like that. There's a lot of different options there. I got to figure that out. I don't have to do it right away. Most of this project is about preserving the plastic that was exposed and oxidizing and kind of degrading. So it's pretty well protected at this point. I just got to get those last couple bits, and there's no reason not to finish the rest of it while I'm at it. So cool. So that's the update of right now. Yeah, I'm gonna be back. I don't know, a little bit. I gotta wait for things to dry now, so and I gotta sand more, and then primer again. Here it is, primered. No more scraping, no more sanding, no more whatever, unless I screw something up at this point. It's not quite as nice as I was hoping for, but it's nearly impossible to really get a really super even and nice and neat bottom of that recessed area. And even the sides are difficult to get straight and smooth and flat in that tiny little crevice. Unfortunately, it's like, one of the details, on this, but hopefully it doesn't stand out too much once it's painted black, which is what I'm hoping for. On that note, I was discussing earlier, I did not have a satin black that I could spray through my airbrush. I do have, rattle cans, but the temperature's too cold to spray, and have it cure without leaving like a texture or something, so I kind of ruled that one out. I don't like rattle cans anyway, and I don't want to get runs in this thing and then having to sand it out. It's too delicate for me to put it through too many rounds of sanding like that. So that is on the way. I ordered that. That was the cheapest option. I also looked at clear coats. There was a satin clear coat that Tamiya makes. I didn't order that because it's like $11, whereas just buying the satin black was only like $6. So on that note, I will have links in the description to any of the stuff you see that I've used in the video. The only thing I'm not going to have a link to is the baton itself, because you can't just buy it online. There was a maker that was selling them, and he has since kind of lost his taste for making these things, from what I've understood. I've asked him for some other things, and he's kind of been dragging his feet. And Mabel wants to say hi. Say hi, Mabel. Yeah, here she is. She'll scream at me if I don't pay attention. So, I gotta wait for that paint, and it is unfortunately right before Christmas. So, I'm gonna be waiting probably 10 days for this paint. It'll probably come right before Christmas. That's my expectation right now. That's the expected delivery date, I should say. Yeah, but like I was saying, I'm gonna have links. They will be affiliate links to all this stuff. So I'll have, for instance, the Tamiya white putty. I'll have the primer that I use. I'll have X-Acto knife blades and my little scribing tool, which is pretty cool, pretty handy. It's the first time I've really got to use it. I've not hardly worked on anything, and I certainly haven't worked on a model kit or something like this in quite a while. So hadn't got to use that, even though I've had it for a while. The super glue, things like that. I'll just throw a bunch of different links. If you click on those, it gives me a tiny kickback. It doesn't cost you anything extra. So that does help me out. I make about, I don't know, $20 a year on that. So it's not hardly worth my time, but I barely have any time for this anyway, because I've been trying to do this, in 10 and 20 minute increments between things, and basically like each night at the end of the night when I get done with things, I work on this for a few minutes right before I go to bed. Once I have that, I can throw down a base coat of the satin black, which is going to be the primary color, and then I've got to come up with another color for the metallic kind of bands. I'll throw a photo up here real quick of the prop, but I don't love the way that it looks on the prop when it's not lit correctly. So what I'm gonna do is I actually have a couple options. I got my big box of paint right down here. I'm trying to get into it without digging too hard, but I think I could I have this Citadel lead belcher, which is a very kind of leady colored, dirty metal, dark metal kind of look. I also have this Model Master Metallizer lacquer. This stuff is really neat. They're both actually really neat colors. I've used this when I built that PBY Catalina model, which I don't think I did a video on. I did that for a gift for my grandfather. He's a World War II veteran, and he actually was a radio man on a PBY Catalina in World War II, flying missions and whatnot. So I built him a model kit of that. I have a thread on the RPF where I had a build thread for that, and turned out really good. It was really cool. So I could use this. This is kind of a neat color. I don't know if you caught in that little clip where I was spraying the primer on the spoons. The reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to base those spoons with the same black I'm using on the Baton here, and I'm going to test out these two colors and see which one I like better. So that's kind of the idea, is I'm going to build a test and see which is better. Let me be redundant and talk in circles for just a minute, so I can talk in circles for just a minute. But the point I'm trying to make on that is I got to have the black first before I can test out either the two paints, because undercoat matters. And I don't know how many of you guys do a lot of painting, but if you don't do a lot of painting, I can tell you the undercoat is very, very important to how the color reflects above. I've been actually thinking about making a video about undercoats and demonstrating that. A lot of people think you have to mix paints and get this perfect mixture of paint. You don't. If you have a really good eye for color, you can put the correct undercoat on it and then put a primary color or whatever over the top, and you will see, you can build up thin coats and you'll see the color change as you add each coat, and you can bring up a color to where you want it. So like, for instance, like on my A-Wing model that I built, I didn't have a dark red. I only had like a normal Tamiya red, like, which is just like, red. It's this red, right? But that's not the right color. It needs to be like a darker red. And so what I did was I painted all the red spots on the A-Wing black first, and that gave me a darker color to work off of, and then I used red over the top of that and built up small, thin coats over the top, and I was able to dial in the exact color I wanted. So, cool thing about that is, like, once you know color theory, you can really get some interesting stuff going on, and you can do a certain amount of like paneling and shadowing and things like that with your undercoat. It's a really neat effect. It can also come out a little cartoonish if it's too heavy-handed, so you got to be careful. I've seen some model builders who do heavy lines on panel lines, and I feel like they're going a little too dark with it, in my opinion, because it can look, like I said, cartoonish. So that's not the look that ILM does for their, model kits, or for their, filming miniatures, and not typically what I like to see for my models. But this is not a model kit. This is a handheld prop. So it's pretty much just going to be one color with a highlight color of whatever. Anyways, I'm just rambling. Sorry about all the weird jumps. It's been a while since I've made a video. I keep forgetting to press record. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. I guess if you like what you see, subscribe. And I appreciate you watching. Tell your friends. See you in the next video.